Sure, this time of unimaginable heat was brief, and in a tiny area, but the setting of records like this is definitely more of a sprint than a marathon. At the famous Large Hadron Collider near Geneva, Switzerland, lead ions i.e., lead atoms, where the number of protons and electrons didn't match were used in collision experiments. The resulting extreme heat came from a bit of subatomic matter called quark-gluon plasma. If you were wondering where or how on earth it ever could have reached that temperature, the answer is fortunately very far from Earth. Indeed, it's very far from our solar system, even on a cosmic scale. The instance in question was a supernova that occurred roughly in, from the POV of a person on Earth, roughly the same portion of the sky as the Gemini constellation. That puts it at roughly 5,000 light-years from Earth. All this talk of practically deadly heat makes me feel like going for a dip in the ocean, but then I learn that this is pretty measly compared to parts of the ocean. Admittedly, these are small, remote areas of the ocean, at a depth of 3 kilometers in the Atlantic Ocean. Along the mid-Atlantic ridge, scientists found volcanic vents producing temperatures in water that had been previously unobserved in science. Here it is the hottest recorded weather in the world. Unexpectedly, it was in the United States of America instead of in Canada. In Death Valley, Nevada, no less. The area is notorious for being so far down that it's below sea level, and being possibly the driest area in North America. It's amazing that anyone was ever dispatched to check the temperature back then, as the weather is so bad it apparently regularly comes close to breaking the record again. There's a surprising amount of debate and fuss over what the highest recorded temperature is for this continent. Until April of 2013, it was held by El Aziza, a small town outside of the Libyan capital of Tripoli. That was all of 136 F 57.77 C, which made it the highest recorded temperature in the world. But then after 90 years on top, the methods used for that reading were prior to research in this. We would have thought that probably the Gobi Desert would be where the hottest recorded temperature would have taken place in Asia. But it wasn't. It wasn't anywhere in the West Indies, or anywhere tropical either. It wasn't somewhere in the Iranian desert. By contrast, we do think of South America as hot. The vast Amazon rainforest would seem the probable candidate for the hottest spot, or maybe you'd think it's somewhere in the 41,000 square mile Atacama Desert, which is purported to be the driest place on Earth. But the truth about that place is that the temperatures there are actually quite moderate. Continent of Europe is mostly temperate, or a bit on the frigid side. There are no vast deserts in it, and even the more southern nations have the Atlantic Ocean and Mediterranean Sea to moderate their weather. Since the most famous region of Australia is probably its outback area, many assume that Australia is mostly a vast desert wasteland. This is because it is either desert or semi-arid for 70% of its size. It's also been experiencing its hottest summers on record for the past 2 years, but the hottest temperature point it ever reached was more than half a century ago. Time of writing, many people are deeply afraid that ocean levels are going to rise and that the oceans will become dangerously warm due to vast amounts of ice melting in our southernmost continent. While an outlier like this is certainly not indicative While a layer like this is certainly not indicative one way or the other, it is curious to think that the hottest temperature ever recorded in the Antarctic was roughly 40 years ago. This temperature recording was made at Venda Station, a site owned and operated by New Zealand.